Let's see. Okay. Woo. Hey, Charles. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Oh, just super unbelievable.
That's good.
Just had I see that you missed out on your, you didn't know, you forgot Monday. You had some comment that you missed.
Yeah, I somehow it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, I feel like I missed something. And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, I missed the dream meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I had worked up your dream, but I think your other dream, we didn't discuss the one of the dancing, the woman that danced some kind of a, that was so moving, I don't know if we finished that one. Yeah, if you can send the text to that one, I'd like to look at it.
Sure.
Again, because it was, it was just a nice dream. Hey, Roy, how are you doing?
Oh yeah, good.
Awesome. Yeah, we're just, is everything calming down in Florida?
Well, not all of Florida. That I don't know if you ever looked at that track on the map. It's still snaking around. It's made about 4 turns. It's going to go across the middle of the state now to the Atlantic side.
Good grief.
I never seen nothing like it. I never
seen it's almost like stalking the state from every different, it's surrounding it, and then seeing where the weak points are.
I mean, how it can go west and then go back east and then go back west and then go back east. I mean, 1,000 miles.
Yeah, and what is I mean, it just typically it moves somewhere and then dissipates. It doesn't just stay kind of swirling around in the same area.
No, it kind of goes west and then kind of north and hits land, and then that's it.
That's very unusual.
It's the snake dance. It must be a happening thing right now.
Certainly not doing it in straight line highway fashion. Hi, Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're got a lot of dreams here. I think we're gonna have let's see. I thought maybe we can just quickly go through Charles, and then we'll come back to it, and then we'll do Kevin's, and then then maybe if Tim comes, we'll do his as well. But anyway, let's just start on it. I think we'll just go through it once, and then we'll come back to it, Charles. But I just thought we'd. Okay, you were in the neighborhood. This is when where he shot. This is a second dream where he shot. Hi, Dawn. We're just gonna go do Charles' dream real quick here. We're not gonna finish it, but let's just go through it. I was in the neighborhood where my grandparents had a house when I was a kid. So that's kind of at the departure point, the realm of the ancestors. You're there at that place. So it's not the parents' house. It's not your child's house. It's the grandparents' house. So that usually means like it's almost like the great mother or the great father or something, that it skipped back a generation, or at least the land of the ancestors. So now, Craig, that's me, but I think it's a representative of the informing knowledge, and it's just I'm just a stand-in for it. And his family were at a house there. There was a beautiful woman amongst them, and he thought it was my wife. Hi, Gary. So anyway, the representative of the informing knowledge of the center, and his relatives reside near the realm of the ancestors. And there is a very desirably feminine anima presence who appears to be the wife or the consort of the teacher of the soul. So this is in the land of the ancestors. Okay. Then I asked where they were going, and this beautiful woman said to her husband's place. So it was not Craig's wife. This very desirable anima has a husband, but it is not related to this first representative of informing knowledge. And the house of the unknown husband of the anima is where she is going. So Craig told Charles that he could join them if he wanted to. So, this wisdom of the unconscious is telling the dream ego it can accompany the desirable anima to her husband's place if he wants to go there. But Charles is very indecisive. They were ready to leave, and he's not sure he wants to go. So he's undecided whether he wants to accompany the anima, so he doesn't. And he goes next door to where his mother and the sister of the mother are. So now you got the grandparents' house, you got this sort of figure that represents the wisdom of the unconscious. You've got the very attractive anima, and she's going somewhere. This informing wisdom in the center kind of tells Charles, you should follow her, but Charles doesn't, and she leaves. And so now Charles goes to the house of the mother and her sister. So it's a very interesting little conglomeration here of people all living close together. Okay.
We have a dream that you can put in chat or?
Yes, I think I can actually. It's got all my comments on it, but let's see here. Do you have it, Charles?
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Why don't you put it in there? Then it won't have all my comments on it. Because those taint it. You don't want to taint the dream. Okay. All right. So now, this is, instead of accompanying the beautiful anima to her consort's home, as was suggested, you go to the house of the mother and her sister. And they seem to be working on now this is a very interesting image. They're working on the grandfather's white van, and they are trying to fit a huge white sail into the rafters or the attic of the garage they are working in. So the mother and her sister are working on the ancestors' mode of movement. This is how the ancestors move. They have the white van and the grandfather's van, and they're working on this. This is going to come up in Kevin's dream too. It's very important. And in Tim's dream, the vehicles mean a lot, and I try to wrap my head around what they mean, but usually I just say it's a mode of movement. It's a vessel, so it has the feminine quality. It represents the outer shell of the ego. Sort of. It's got a lot of connotations. So anyway, then they're working they're trying to install or fit in the upper rafters of this place where the ancestors' mode of operating is stored, this huge collector of pneuma or spirit in the upper reaches. So it's going to be like almost an antenna that's going to collect spirit or pneuma. And this is being done by the mother and the mother is sister. So there's a lot of feminine presence in here. We've got, the beautiful Anima, and then we've got the mother and her sister, and they're trying to deal with spirit, which is kind of an unusual thing for the mother and her sister to be doing. Hi, Carl. We're just doing a couple dreams here, and we can see if we can get to yours.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, hi. It's we're doing Charles' dream. I don't know. He put it in the chat, I believe. Now there's a okay. So that's what's been happening here. That was Act 2. Okay, so now we're moving to Act 3. Now there's a ton of people outside in the neighborhood, but Charles feels disconnected from them and lonely. So none that he can unite with, or that there's going to be any relationship with. So he's still feeling very alone, that these are not figures he can relate to. Now, all of a sudden, now this is very interesting. A car comes careening through the street, up onto the neighbor's driveway, through their backyard, and then up a hill onto the gravel road where some other cars are parked. So it's this chaotic, reckless fashion, this malevolent and dangerous vehicle appears. The people in this malevolent vehicle jump out, pull out rifles, and start an armed carjacking of people's cars they pull up next to. So these, they're just, there's just this malevolent scene of willfulness, from the unconscious. Something's being forced. Some willfulness is either coming from the shadow or from the unconscious, and not sure. I run off and take out my phone to call the police, but the next thing I know, these armed men and women are everywhere in the neighborhood. So they've taken over. So, it's like almost become this place of oppression, and everyone seems to be under arrest. And all these armed people were just like the ones in the car. They're present everywhere. And there's an armed man right behind Charles, and he lays down on his stomach, and he stops him from calling the police. And while he's lying on the ground, he shoots me in the left hand and in the back. So this force he injures the left hand, the way of acting in the unconscious, which is a clue, and then and your inferior function is your back. So he shoots you in the inferior function, which is the door to the unconscious, and in the left hand, which is the way of acting in the unconscious. So this force is really trying to cripple us from interacting with the unconscious. And see, it all started in the realm of the ancestors. So it's this realm of the ancestors where the self resides, and the beautiful Anima resides with her unknown husband, which is probably the shadow, and then the mother and her sister are there. So it's this very rich unconsciousness. And then what comes in? Some type of stifling oppressiveness that is trying to stop us from having any relationship with the unconscious, and then shoots us in the inferior function and in the left hand, which is the hand of action in the unconscious. So the bullet leaves a small metallic object and a yellow splatter. So, it didn't really rip our flesh. It left kind of a metallic object and a yellow splatter, which usually has to do something if you know, it's either solar or sulfur or gold or some reason it's yellow. Yellow tends to be, you know, the color of intuition. I think blue's thinking, red is feeling, green is sensation, yellow is usually intuition. So it's an intuitive. You could say it's an intuitive splash. What is your psychological type? You're a what are you, Charles? You remember?
I mean, not really.
Yeah.
I think I'm a feeling type.
Yeah, I'd say IN. I would say INFJ. I'd say that your extroverted function. Well, maybe not. It might be INFP. So your extroverted function is intuition. I don't know. It'd be hard. I would have a hard time typing you because you don't really seem that feeling related, and you seem more thinking related than feeling, but yet you long for relatedness. You know, there's an aspect there. So I think there. I'm not sure. You could be very right, but anyway, it's leaving an intuitive splatter and a metallic object which has, you know, the word metal. You know what it means? It means to search. The etymology of the word metal means to look for or to search. And so when we see metal, it means that's what we searched for, you know. And then it became just the name for this very hard non-rock ore that was in the ground, you know, including iron and bronze and copper. And so it didn't hurt, you know, it's just a metallic object with a yellow splatter, meant to incapacitate, but it didn't really hurt. So their threat is somewhat empty. The threat seems to be this oppressive atmosphere, their aggressiveness, and then, but what they're shooting is, you know, it's a metal object and some kind of yellow splatter. I don't know. So then you turn around and you start reading some message that's on a phone or a piece of paper. You try to read it, but it's all gibberish. Doesn't make sense. This makes you very suspicious that you're dreaming and you wake up. So let's read that again. I then turn around and start reading some sort of message that's on a phone or a piece of paper or something, and it's all gibberish, doesn't make sense. So suddenly the dreaming ego thinks, this is not happening. This must be a dream, and then he wakes up. All right. Well, that's a little bit of it. Maybe everybody can comment on it. I mean, it's going to take me a while to decipher this. I mean, I would think. I think I got Kevin's dream a little bit and Tim's, but what do you think, Roy?
Yeah, I see some sort of pattern showing up in these dreams. I'm going to rough it out a little bit. I think I'm INFJ. I'm a feeling person, at least. And I think I think we can all agree that we've had this experience with, in the other realm, with a child, an innocent child. You know, for a woman, it could be wanting to have a child. It really grounds her because it's sort of indirectly connected with the self. And for men, they have that too. Uh, this innocent child thing in this other realm. And I think people go two ways when they're in the physical world. We have the innocent child and the historical child, which we experience in this world. And people go basically two different ways. One way is they we get a lot of experience a definition for trauma would be too much experience. And one group of people can process this experience, and they're sort of somewhat aggressive and competitive. And another group of people are overwhelmed by too much experience, and they build a fantasy world. And that's what I do. I have the pasture. It's a very safe place. The posse can come through. The bad guys can come through. It's an invisible world where danger doesn't come there. And I can feel safe there. And I've constructed this world, and my child lives there, my innocent child. And I feel like Charles is a very sensitive person, and he has a world like this too, where the hamster boat is, and he can feel safe there. So we have this historical child, and we have to live in this physical world. And I think because we can't process experiences well, a lot of dark figures show up, the dark part of the symbol. And that's what's happening with these carjackings and groups of people that seem to be out of control and hostile. They're dark images, and they have something to do, I believe, with not being able to process experiences. And they show up as these images, and we don't know how to interpret them, how to concretize them. What happened sometime in my earlier life that brought these demonic images that I project on things outside myself, where the other group of people who are more aggressive and competitive maybe become the shadow themselves. They fear from themselves things that they do, like Tim being stuck on a roof. So these are some themes that I'm seeing showing up in these in dreams, and I can kind of relate to Charles because I have that fantasy world where I feel safe, and I have trouble processing all the experiences that I'm overwhelmed with in the physical world.
Yeah, it seems to be that this fantasy world is threatened by almost like E.T., by this alien presence, which has a malevolent quality. And yet it seems to be imaginal. It seems to be bluffing. And it seems to be very, it's just like a thick fog. It's everywhere.
But it's connected to something real, which Charles, what happens to people like me and Charles is there's a demonic presence. You could call it the taskmaster. It's not the taskmaster, but it numbs people. It makes them numb and in a trance. The trance master. I'm going to call this demonic thing the trance master. It sort of puts you in a trance, or it has a numbing effect where you can't connect with the other world. You don't know how to advance the innocent child to the next stage because you're caught in this demonic world where you're in a trance. And usually we go through a lot of suffering or trauma before we wake up and we can find our story. What happened to us? What happened to us to wake us up, to reconnect with that child so we can go to the next stage and grow this child up and integrate into this world while we're here.
Yeah, and the two things it attacks, or three things, is the vehicles. It seems to be a master of vehicles. It drives them very fast, but it's trying to take everyone else's vehicles. And then for Charles, it attacks his inferior function and his left hand, and it's trying to cut off a healthy relationship with the unconscious and brings in this chaotic element. What do you think, Gary?
Well, it's interesting because you're actually in this dream as like a relating function. And so and so there's this beautiful woman, possibly is Anima that, that he's attracted to, you tell him as a relating function that you can join them. But, there's a hesitation, this indecisiveness, which I think we've also seen in other dreams. And so instead of following on that possibility, instead he goes back to the familial, the ancestors with the mother and the aunt. And then they're caught up in, in almost like their parents' history. So it's like, that part of it isn't clean. And it's like, they're trying, they're trying to do something with this white sail. And like, to me, okay, a sail kind of represents, I'm going to take it literally, like sail on, like, like try to get out of this, kind of push past it. Because that's what a sail does, it kind of allows us to push past things. So, he goes there, he's apparently, absorbing this. And that, I think, maybe even causes additional isolation because he's not with a group of people that he needs to be with. He needed to be with the Anima.
Yeah, that was what was suggested to him, and it seems to have precipitated what followed. The fact that he was told by the informing wisdom in the center that he should go with the Anima, and he didn't. He goes to the mothers who are putting a sail in a stationary object that can't go anywhere anyway. Who puts a sail in a garage?
Yeah, very strange.
And I mean, it's not going to make it go anywhere, so it's not going to do anything anyway.
And then we're right back into the history that we've seen in the other dreams with all this, totally weird violence and stuff going on. And I think Roy's, observation on this is probably pretty keen, where it's like, if you can't pull off the relation and the understanding, then these things are going to be threatening until they become something. It's like, it's okay if they're the shadow, but they have to be conscious as the shadow. You have to work to integrate them. Whereas in this, they're just straight shadow and doing things that just don't make sense.
Yeah, well, there's some powerful presences there. There is the grandparents, there is the self, and then there is this very beautiful Anima, all who seemingly are, and then, I mean, there is some aspect. I want to finish this next time, but we're getting somewhere anyway. I don't, because I want to get to Kevin and Tim's dream, and also see if Carl can just introduce his dream before we're done. So, what Kevin or Tim or Carl, do you have any comments on Charles' dream? And then Charles, it deserves more attention from me, I think. I don't know if I can do it right here, but what do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I was just wondering, in the dream, in this place, is this a place where you received your first conscious awareness? Like, do you remember the first time you became aware of yourself?
Oh, that's a particularly difficult question for me to answer.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean that.
Okay, that's fine.
That my grandparents' house, though, that was in my dream, that was particularly significant house that shows up all the time in my dreams, and
so I would assume it is perhaps then related to, as already mentioned, the Great Mother, so which deals with one's archetypal core, basically. And so the question I feel like being imposed in you, are you going with the Anima, or are you going to take up the shadow? You know, are you going straight into the unconscious with the anima and the unknown husband? Or are you essentially going to take the struggle with the shadow? And I feel like you made a correct decision what was going with the shadow first. And Greg is also introduced in the dream, which I think is very helpful in your case, because Greg can really do good dream analysis. I mean, and it has now come into one's core, you know, into your ancestral place. And so I think that would be needed for dealing with the shadow. Yes, and I can see also you try to call the police and you can't really because it's taken from you. So the superego cannot help you in this case. And now you're put on your stomach. I don't know if you have been ever put on your stomach like that, but that feels very helpless, vulnerable, and nakedness. So this complex has this effect on you. The very fact that it's a group of complexes, meaning that it's quite, it's a group of complexes. They're quite advanced, basically. It's an advanced shadow, but they can't kill you. They can't even provide you consciousness, the color yellow. So what they shoot at you is essentially, I don't know what association you have to the yellow, whether it's association, you know, when you fall down, you create like yellow abscess. I don't know what you call it. Like when you get a wound, you know, I don't know if you have discussed association to the yellow, but obviously yellow is also related to conscious awareness. It shoots you from the back. It's often obviously where the shadow comes and attacks. Yeah, I'm not going to go too much into it. We're going to continue on this. But like I said, I think you're being invited to dealing with the anima straightforward, but you're saying no. And now the shadow complexes is being constellated. It has to do with your quite core part of yourself in your ancestral. It's core part. It's a karma, basically. We are born in certain karma in the world because the world is not fair, and this is one of these things.
I think there's three aspects. One, first of all, we're in the land of the ancestors, and there we meet the saving thing, which is this center, the self, and the anima. You know, we are indecisive and don't accept their invitation. We go back into the realm of the puer aeternus, which is the containing womb of the mother, who is building a puer aeternus sail for us in the garage, this flying sail of the puer aeternus, but it won't go anywhere. It has nothing to propel, you know? And so then after these two things happen, first, the thing that will move us forward is rejected. We return to this old realm of the puer aeternus, this being contained in the womb of the mother, and the sail that doesn't go anywhere. When we go there, suddenly we become vulnerable to the attack by a very powerful, malevolent shadow, which is trying now to stop us from having any healing connection with the depths. And it does that by shooting us in our left hand, which is the hand of action in the unconscious, and shooting us in the inferior function, which is the bridge to the unconscious. So, or the open door. So that's kind of, now I didn't know any of that until I heard everybody talk, but I think we're getting somewhere. What do you think, Charles? A little bit, not completely.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think everyone's done a quite helpful job of going through it.
Yeah, I think that we're going to get to that, and I would like to kind of review it. Tim, did you have enough to comment on it, or
no?
Not?
But you just said left hand is the hand of action. What do you mean?
The left hand is the hand of action in the unconscious. You know, in other words, it just represents a an active role in the unconscious, where the right hand would be an active role in the outer world.
Oh, I see. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
Yeah. And then also getting shot in the back, to me, is wounding the inferior function, so it can't be an open door. Now, Charles, let's take this up again next time, just so we can get to everybody's dreams, because everybody's got some really good dreams here. But we skipped Charles. We were gonna discuss your dream last time. Carl, do you have any comments, or Ernestine? Are you Carl's friend, or maybe not? Is that Carl? Is that your
Ernestine? Yes, that's my friend Sarah Rowe.
Okay? Hi, Sarah. Sarah. Yeah. Anyway, it does either Carl or Sarah have any comments on the dream or not?
It's an interesting dream. I'm not really well versed in dream interpretation yet, so I'm not gonna really offer too much on it. But I think what I'm hearing it resonates with me. So
yeah, I think when anybody, just both you and Sarah and anybody that's doing dreams, the one thing that we can offer sometimes, and maybe you can do that as we move forward, is if you had this dream, how would you feel?
yeah.
It's a way anybody can answer that question. But anyway, let's get on to Kevin's dream and Tim's dreams, which were both very important. And I think I got a little bit of handle on both of them, particularly Tim's. I'm not sure I got Kevin's yet, but I had a lot on Tim's. Let's see if I can find Kevin. Let's see here. I think I got it. I think I really got a good handle on Tim's dream. But hopefully we'll get to it pretty quick. All right. Well, Kevin's dream is again. This is a dream of his father and a security job on the way of movement in the underworld, which is the subway. Okay. So it starts out again, he's at his grandmother's place on the porch. I mean, everybody dreams about their grandmothers. I mean, the grandfather, I don't know how often he comes up, but the grandmother, and this is your mother's mother, right, Kevin, or not? Yeah. Okay. So it's the mother of the mother. So it's definitely represents somewhat of the elemental feminine and also the ancestral world, okay, which basically says it's the unconscious. Okay. This is the realm of images, and the grandmother's other grandson, your cousin, is accused of something and gets mad, and he seems to be tired of being accused. So her grandson is there. It's the great mother, the deep feminine. Her grandson is there and is accused of being guilty of something which he thinks is unjust and is tired of the accusation. So the shadow just keeps getting accused over and over of the same thing, and it's getting tired of it. Don't blame it all on me, Kevin. It's partly your ego's fault. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm wondering if that's the ego has to take some responsibility here. So now we are now about to have dinner, and Walter, this is actually Kevin's real father, is having dinner with us, and he's trying to find a place to sit. So am I. Seems as if we really don't want to sit next to each other and be intimate. You're somewhat shy to sit next to him, and then suddenly discover you don't have time anyway. You have to go to work. So now this father, Walter, even though he seemed to have a good intention towards Kevin, he was never lied to you, was always truthful with you, and yet he was absent, mysterious, and seldom seen, you know. And yet he's going to join this collective meal at the in the house of the elemental feminine, you know, the and um, uh, this almost imaginal father, it's almost not unreal father, is one who we really had um, no living relationship with, you know. It was more always provisional. Is about to sit down, and it feels awkward to be intimate with just this provisionality of a father, you know, especially in this place, in this place of the eternal feminine. So so you try to keep your distance from his presence. Now, this is a realm similar to the subway, you know, but it's a little more. Um, uh, it has this. When we're in the realm of the ancestors, you know, it's just like in Charles' dream. It was magical. Realm of the ancestors, self, anima are all there, you know. And anyway, then suddenly you remember that you have to go to the place of the persona of generating psychic energy. Okay, so you have to go to work. Now, what work? It's a new job. It's a job we've never done before. And it was making sure that this underground movement in the unconscious, uh, um, this way of moving in the lower realms, is protected and not tampered with. I mean, security, some type of it's just this way of movement in the underworld needs someone to make sure it is not obstructed in any way. So Kevin's been assigned the task in the unconscious of being its you know, it's helping this movement in the unconscious go unimpeded, you know, and not be tampered with. Usually what it really would be tampered with would be ego consciousness, you know. Who would tamper with it? The only one that would tamper would be the ego or the shadow. Now, as you're waiting for the subway to come behind the glass door, your mother comes and disturbs you, so you go out the glass door to the subway platform and into the subway, the one you are to work on. So now you're waiting for this movement underground behind a protective wall of glass. The mother is there too, so she shares some connection with the protective wall that keeps us from the inner workings of the unconscious. So the mother is, you know, she's the one who wants her son to grow up, but doesn't want her son to grow up. I mean, she wants him to always remain a child, but she wants him to grow up too, you know. So she's when Kevin is staying behind the protective wall, she's in ascendance here. Okay. When he leaves the protective wall, suddenly she no longer matters. So if he wants protection, he's going to be in the ascendancy of the mother world. If he leaves that, that's sort of like a hero's journey. He's leaving the realm of the mothers, but still going into the unconscious as a technician of the way of movement there. You know, so as you're then you now here's classic. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm new to this job. Okay. That's because the ego can't really help us here, you know. this is a place where ego consciousness is of no help. This is going to come up in Tim's dream too, I think, pretty starkly. You know, so ego consciousness seems lost here. I'm not sure what the task entails, or if I can do it at all. You know, and now here's one. You know, it always helps to have the text of it because you can think of it. It helps me anyway. So now we see a bulged out TV, and we think it's a new feature on the subway, and perhaps has something to do with the security. Well, a bulged out TV to me means this. Have you ever seen a mirror, which is sort of a 3D mirror, you know, which a 360 degree mirror that can see everything? It's bulged out. So it seems to me like this bulged out television has something to do with a non-flat screen world. It's a three-dimensional, more, you know, it is a more, not a flat screen anyway. It's some way of participating visually with a 360 degree view, you know, rather than a flat view. So I think that's what this means. And I think so we see a bulged out three-dimensional TV screen, and this has something to do with the task here. So in other words, the task here has something to do with the roundness of 360 degrees, you know, the bulged out TV, the 360 degree view, you know. It doesn't have to do with flat images. So anyway, that has something to do with this subway. Now you're taking out some spring or component by the door. So this is the logos at work, you know. Kevin is a thinking function person, so the only thing he knows how to do is to differentiate and take things apart. So he's starting to work on the door. That's his bailiwick, at least the ego's way of doing things. And then suddenly either he calls work or work calls him, and they want to know, what are you doing with those components? Do you know what you're doing? You know, I mean, does differentiation, thinking function, is it really what we need here? You know, and so there, and then the voice, who is a feminine voice, hears over the phone that the train has been switching tracks and warns me of the danger. So, you know, this train has a negative and a positive aspect, or at least it can go this way or that way. It can go either the right or the left, or it can go the unconscious or the consciousness. So it's Hermes, you know, it could go to either world. And so it switches tracks. It's either going from the conscious to the unconscious, or the unconscious to the conscious. And so aware of the danger. So it's really is this sort of a messenger type thing. So now you are thinking, because of that too, that you may have worked on this subway before when it was driving in the opposite direction. There seems to be a deja vu where a second ago we didn't know what we were doing or what we were supposed to do. We're having a little deja vu, and we think that the problem with the door is something we did using the thinking function the last time when the train was going in the opposite direction, you know. So now we are we are thinking this is like a place called Godlia, which is a metro station in Oslo, right? Yeah, it's just the name of a metro station, but it's named Godlia. Okay, that's a pretty specific name. This place resembled a previous departure point named Godlia, So it must be related to some sacred or godly place, a place the psyche remembers residing at. It's so this is another kind of a clue that this place is a sacred teamnos or something, you know. And so the underground subway that goes back and forth. See, it adds, that name adds a wonderful magical quality to this thing, where we know now it is magical. You know, it has this very numinous. So now we see the uncle in the subway. Now we saw the mother there, and it's near the place of the grandmother. And now we're seeing the mother's brother there. And first we saw the mother and her sister. Now we're seeing the mother's brother, and he's there with his wife. He's really interested in what you're doing in the underground. Well, the mother's there, the mother's sister's there, the brother's there. This is a funny, little, pretty interesting underground realm here. They're very interested in the activity we have to do with protecting this way of movement in the unconscious. So this might be an aspect of the mothers that's not as disturbing. You know, it's more fascinated by what we're doing, where the mother was more potentially stifling, but her brother is a little more open and curious and fascinated by what we're doing, you know. Okay, so then it ends up that you try to show the uncle what you've been doing, and your pockets are too deep. Is that right, Kevin? Your pockets are too deep to show your uncle what you're doing?
It was, the spring was quite deep down, but I managed to get them out, but I needed to work a bit.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So anyway, that's kind of a thing. I have not tied this one together yet, but let's just hear some comments, and if nothing comes to us, we'll finish it up with Charles' dream, because we do want to get to Tim's, and also maybe have Carl introduce his dream. But
Hey, Kevin, I'm wondering if you have any association with that Godlia station, if there's something that happened.
Yeah, the two things that comes in mind, that because I lived in this place, when I came into this place, it was a place that was absence of life. I felt as absence of life in this place. And another thing with this place was that they had a very small cinema, like in this place, like just for a few people, like in middle of nowhere, sort of, there is a cinema. And yeah, and like Craig said, Gulia, Lia means in Norwegian, it's a place, like a small place somewhere. Lia, it's a Lia. And Gulia, I felt like that's quite a good observation of Craig, why that station was particularly used. I think it also has to do with this particular name.
There's can you see the picture of it and the sign there? You see it? Can you see it, Kevin?
Yes, I mean, that's a new picture. There was nothing like that when I first time lived there.
Yeah. Well, it just has the name of the station.
Yeah,
the
I
metro
lived there.
It's a wonderful underground place there in Oslo. You can go anywhere underground. So it's so fluid and mobile. But now let's review good question by Tim. There was a sense that there was no life there. Do you think there was a sense that there was no life there because of you, or because there actually wasn't any sense of life?
You know, before you starting working on the dream, it could have just been I was thinking it was because it wasn't really. I think there are many places in Norway like that. There's many places in Norway which is like breathtaking, you know, but there is places in Norway with just no life. And I don't know if that has to do with the father entering the dream, because I never seen father in my dream before. Like I've seen the archetypal aspect twice, and this is the third, but this is the first time I see my father. And if father is like, and this is something I just realized while you were talking, is that if the father is the realization of consciousness, I don't know if the father in the dream is a symbol of my consciousness, that my consciousness perhaps has been absent, and all the thing you said, Greg, like trustworthy and mysterious. Perhaps that's, you know, that's perhaps my relationship to consciousness. I don't know. That I'm just, there's something just comes up when you talked about my father. But yeah, to answer your question, I think most likely the place didn't feel like that, because there are many places in Norway like that. Yeah, I don't think it was too much of me.
Well, let's hear from everybody. Charles and Roy and Gary, and see what. Go ahead.
The pocket. I was wondering if the spring in the pocket might symbolize like a womb. And I just Googled pocket. It wasn't in my symbolism book. And if the spring might mean to spring into action or to spring from the womb. Didn't know if that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, these pockets that are so deep that it's hard to bring something out of it. So to me, it's like
He wants to be born again.
yeah. Well, there's this aspect. Well, when you reach into your pocket and it's so deep that you can't pull something out of it, and sort of related to what I think Kevin said about his father. It's interesting that I mean, when he was talking about that, is the fact that the relationship with his father was somewhat provisional, somewhat imaginal, and then the differentiating function took the spring out of the door, put it in its pocket, and it almost like it was put into our brain. And now this thing's so far deep into our memory, we can't get at it or something. I don't know. I mean, it's just very interesting that the pockets are so deep. It's we can only get it at difficulty, and it's also fouled with a bunch of other stuff like pocket lint and things, and we can't get at it because of all the other stuff that's in there. But those are good points, Carl. What do you think, Charles? Do you have any? You usually always have a pithy comment.
I guess if I were like to see it as my own dream, that I guess I kind of am focusing around the whole idea that I have this new job in the underworld where I have to make sure everything runs smoothly, which is odd because it should almost be operating on its own. It's whether I'm aware of it or not. Yeah, I find that really strange. But and the whole fact that like the train is like switching tracks and there's this, am I correct that like there's like supposed to be a possible collision that has to be averted?
No, it was no possible collision. It does happen sometimes, you know, where it just changes during the day or something.
Okay.
And it was just be more observant of if they do keep doing that, you know, that it might, but it didn't feel like an accident that was going to happen.
Kind of reminds me of, you know, Winston Churchill comes to New York, and where they drive on the, we drive on the, on the right-hand side of the road here. Is that what we do? But in Britain, they drove on the left-hand side of the road. So when he's trying to cross the road, he looks in the wrong direction and gets hit by a car. You know, so I mean, it's, go ahead.
I just remember, like, when Tim asked me, do you have an association? Actually, in that place, I did do a stupid things. I did climb the fence and I walked on the track because I was on the other side, and for me to go around would take so long. So I jumped on the face and I walked towards Gulia on the track, like, and the other subway like got mad at me obviously, and he warned me. But that's another association I have to that place.
Yeah, they're unbelievably quiet too. I mean, it's that they can just sneak up on you. What do you think, Roy?
Yeah, I like how you tied all that together, Greg. I'm going to ask Kevin, did the spring have any luminosity for you, or did you,
I have to be
did it?
honest. No, I didn't feel any luminosity to the spring. If I felt something like quite intense, it was the experience of my father. I feel like more than anything else.
That was the most luminous thing, having your father
Yes,
in the dream.
in the
Okay.
dream, yeah, having him standing next to me before I went to my side. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's a kind of a overarching magic to it. Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, the thing, I like the spring, but it doesn't ring with Kevin. So I'm flat on the water.
Well, spring is kind of a spiral, but I don't know.
I mean, the
It has
spring
potential energy to
is
it.
life to me.
Potential energy.
I mean, Carl talked about the womb, the springs in the womb, life. It's not a dead place. I mean, but it doesn't ring no bells for Kevin.
Well, and Charles is right. It's represents potential energy. It can be released, so it's
That's not dead.
no, it's something that that's compressed and can expand. What do you think, Gary?
Well, the thing that I find most fascinating about it is that, this underground, it's the subconscious, but he's adding sensors, he's adding things that he can find to figure out what's going on down there. And so, it's becoming more under his control. He can even switch the tracks of where the train runs. And a spring is something which is under tension. And of course, tension is always, that's like something that represents, having to hold two things and having to reach for it, deeply. It's like, okay, you're getting more control of the unconscious. You're moving past the mother complex, that's being left behind. And, there's more control and there's things to reach for.
Did Tim or Carl or Don or Sarah, do you have any comments about it? And maybe Kevin can just sum up it. But I would like to come back to Charles and Kevin's dream later.
I think about the appearance of the mother, the father, the grandmother, and the grandson.
That's amazing.
And the uncle.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a quaternity out of those four, and the uncle being some kind of a transitional figure, but it's not gelling for me. I'm just thinking about that pattern.
Yeah, father, mother, uncle, at least, and then Kevin would be the fourth, possibly.
But it starts out with the
grandparents. Yeah, but it's the place of the grandmother. But is she there?
She doesn't appear.
Yeah, she doesn't appear.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. But that is I think you already nailed it, though, Tim. I think that what you said is true, that there's at least a quaternity there, for four, including Kevin, of the mother, the father, the mother, and the brother of the mother. There was also the woman on the phone, and who else was there? I can't remember. Was it the aunt? But maybe she just represents the consort. Well, Dawn or Carl or Sarah, do you have any comments where we turn it over to Kevin for a second? Maybe, well, Kevin, what? Now, I want to review Charles' dream and Kevin's dream next time at the start, just to try to, because I don't feel closure here yet. So we'll try to do that. But Kevin, do you have any things
Yeah,
that you think tie things together at all?
Yeah, I feel like when everyone's, new insights comes along. And I will thank you, Greg. You actually wrote this up, so I really appreciate that. So you know, like I said, it might be that my father actually has to do with my conscious awareness. I ask myself, how conscious have I been during my life? Because like these days, like these few weeks, I have been really extroverting a lot. Like I have been really extroverting. I am pretty much more out there than I am inside my head. In my case, that's a good thing. Perhaps that's why my father also was in the dream. Because perhaps my consciousness has somewhat been absent, mysterious, and so on. I don't know, but this is just a thought. Another thing which struck me, I got this perhaps the second time we talk about the dream, and I got this realization only later, that I mean, I think a lot of my life, sort of the myth sort of, has been the trickster, the hermetic life, the Hermes. And if I think about it, that the track is also where I climbed the fence and walked. I went against the boundaries, the collective boundaries. And my uncle is also a trickster figure. And the track switching place is also somewhat of a tricksterous thing. And yes, and also the spring could also be like spiral, like people say. And there was two spring, I remember that. So you have two spring, and one could be the unconscious, one could be the consciousness. So I felt like perhaps this has been, I thought I had perhaps outgrown trickster, but it seems like what I've been doing lately, no, it hasn't been. Perhaps it's just a part of my psychological makeup. I have to do this, something like that.
The spiral of the spring makes me think of descending and ascending as well. I had a dream once, and I was battling, like, I think it was a figure of representative of the self, and he was saying, I will return to my original state, saying something about bliss or something. I mean, he was rising up a tower on a silver disc in a spiral. So thinking of that, I wonder if this descending and descending, that's just what came to mind.
Exactly. I mean, it does represent the ascent and the descent, because it's like a spiral staircase. And you add that to what the fact that it can be compressed and then possesses more energy that way. When the way of ascent and descent is compressed, it adds it stores energy, in the fact that the spring or the spiral, the way of ascent and descent, like a spiral staircase, is compressed. That's very, very good. Yeah, go ahead.
And you could also think of the direction of the trains switching tracks. You could theoretically put it up and down.
Yes.
Now instead of horizontal.
Yeah, or even like left to the unconscious or right to the conscious attitude. That's the fact that it's going back and forth between the conscious attitude and the unconscious. So all those are very evocative. Okay. So anyway, we're going to revisit both Charles and Kevin's dream next time because I don't think we finished it. But I'd like to get onto Tim's dream, and then we can have Carl introduce a dream, and then Carl, I think would have to finish it next time, but at least we can hear your dream. And so now we're going to go to Tim's dream, which Tim, could you put your drawing up there? I tried to put it up, but I can't find it. I mean, it's lost on my disk somewhere.
Yeah, I've been having trouble with the screen share, but I'll see if I can
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I think I could get it, but I just got to find out where I put it. I saved it, and then it went to no man's land. Let me see here if I can do it again. Oh, there it is. I suddenly got it. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see if I got it here.
Yeah, my screen share isn't working.
Yeah, there it is. I got it. Let me just go edit in Picasa. There we go. Okay, I got it now. Okay, here we go. Okay. Yeah, on my iPad, I don't have to do screen share, but this one I do. Okay, so this is the dream. Now, this is a dream, again, with vehicles and with two ascents. And I love the way you drew the car, okay? It's tends to be it's a white sports car, right?
Right.
You know, yeah, and it represents Tess, who was his manager for several years and a good friend today. So at one time she was getting him business, either selling paintings or getting shows or such like that, right, Tim? Or
Yeah.
trying to generate revenue for his art. Okay. Well, anyway, let's just get started with it. Okay, I've got it here. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. All right. I've gotten myself into a competition, and I'm racing Tessa's white car down a mountain road in about a foot of snow. So there's some required test, and it's to descend from a mountain, make this descent in the Anima's way of movement, her vehicle, and so the one that and she's the one that linked me to my artistic life, you know, and so she's kind of dual. I mean, she's linking us to artistic life, but she's also a feminine presence, which somewhat represents the unconscious. So she's kind of outer and inner. And now there's a large amount of obstruction on the way of descent. Now, is that true? There's a foot of snow, but not on the road, right? Or
yeah, it's all over. So that it hasn't been plowed. No, and I'm sure the reason we fell off the road is because of the snow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there might be another reason. Okay. We'll get into that in just a second. There is a large amount of obstruction on the way of descent. It's not clear and it's dangerous. The car is a performance vehicle, so normally it's one that that performs very well when there is no way of obstruction. Fast, nimble travel, So now you've been down this. The ego has went down this road several times, and feels very confident. Ego feels confident, and so with Tess beside him, the Anima, you start off on another run. So she's on your right side, on your conscious side, and we begin to descend. But on the very first turn, the car skids and slides off the road. We tumble into the deep snow, but the car is not too messed up. In fact, seems to be in fairly good shape. I'm going to find out in a second why we had a crash here. On the first run of the descent, the car can't hold its grip on the way of the descent because ego is so confident that it can accomplish the task. Ego is supremely confident that it can accomplish this descent, okay? And yet it can't. It loses its grip on the descent and tumbles into the deep snow. Because this is not an open road. This is a road that is, is full of obstructions. The ego's not up to the task. So, and yet the vehicle's not damaged by this. So the feminine hasn't been injured, but the ego's confidence has been shattered somewhat. It's not capable of making this descent, this dangerous descent. So this is a very dangerous descent, and ego was not up to the task. So then you, after the accident, you call out for tests, but you don't hear anything. You check around, and you're astonished to see she's not there. The Anima has disappeared. You know, there's no sign that she got out of the car. There's no sign that she was injured in any way. She just is not there. She's disappeared. And now I'm going to get to it in a second, what I think is going on. But then the ego realizes the car is still moving without ego, okay? But now it's emerged, it's back on the road, and it's carrying on in an orderly fashion down the road, making the descent without any help from ego. And yet the ego seems a little frantic, and it can't see out. So after the disappearance of the Anima, her vehicle keeps moving. It has resumed the descent, but now is doing it much better and more slowly and less recklessly than when ego was piloting it. So when the ego controls this vehicle, it spins out of control and the feminine disappears. So the fact that the ego was so confident about the descent causes the inner feminine to vanish, you know. And when ego has to give up control because it realizes it's not adequate to the task, then the descent continues naturally and orderly fashion because the ego is not interfering now, and it can descend, but only without intentions. So the ego now, when you say the ego is frantically trying to see out, are the windows blocked, or why can't you don't know?
Cover the snow, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
just because of the snow. It's a little, everything's obstructed by the snow. So, you know, there is a question of what does that mean? What is the fact that the mountain is just totally covered in icy water, you know, crystallized water, unconscious, the crystallization of the unconscious is covering everything. And the fact that it's so deep makes it sort of almost obvious that the unconscious is not going to be able to navigate very well here. Anyway, because of this, all this crystallized unconscious, the ego's viewpoint is occluded and doesn't seem to have anything to do with a controlled and unintentional descent. Okay, now that's Act 1. Okay. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with Act 2. It doesn't appear, yet they are almost, they're almost, they're analogies of each other. Okay, where in the first case, it's a descent with the Anima, with her car, down the mountain, through crystallized unconscious. Ego when it's in control, supremely confident, it still goes into the ditch. And yet this feminine consciousness, so Tess is not really gone. She seems to be piloting the car now. What do you think about that? That Tess and the car have become one because the ego can't control it. So now the feminine is piloting the car herself, but as the car, as the vehicle. So now we're going to Act 2 here. Now this is, the first part was mysterious. The second part is also mysterious. This part, I think, has got a few more gaps in it. Just out of the blue, without any explanation, Tim finds himself on the roof of a house. Doesn't tell us how. And it's John's house just down the street. Now, John is lived halfway between Tim's art studio and what used to be his personal house. So it's sort of this in-between place of the personal and the artistic life. In the first dream, Tess was the manager of the artistic life, so yeah, I'm not sure where we are with that, but so anyway, so some shifts again in a descent. John's house is midway between the midpoint, my personal life, and my business artistic life. Now, this is analogous to Tess, the business manager. And, but it seems to be, the dream seems to be saying it's very high up in the conscious attitude, way high. Something is too high. It needs to go down. And we're not sure what, but in the dream of going down the mountain, it seems to be going down to, I think both these dreams have to do with grounding, going down to the foot of the mountain or going down to the ground, so that we're too high up. In fact, we're above the shadow's house. We're on the second story of the roof of the shadow's house. Now, it doesn't have to be the shadow. We don't know if it's shadow, but for right now, we'll say it's the shadow. Maybe it could be some other figure. But this shadow is absent, and we have no way of descending. We don't know how we got there, but we certainly don't have a way of descending. And we're sitting at the edge of we're perched on the precipice. And ego's very alarmed, even though it seems to be that we're not going to fall. Before we were frantic because we were in a car driving itself that we couldn't see out of. Now we're alarmed because we're at the precipice of falling off a two-story roof, in the shed, and we have no way of descending. It's nighttime. We check the downspout, rain gutter, balcony. There's no way to get down. And you hadn't seen John for a long time, so you assume he's gone. And it really begs the question of what are we doing there in the roof of the house? And then the neighbor comes out on the sidewalk, and you ask him to find a ladder, and then suddenly John appears. We hadn't seen him recently, but he's here now after we asked for the ladder, and he very calmly proceeds to go and get a ladder to let us down. So it's just this question: how did he get up there? And this is one thing I do with the dreams. I just start asking questions. How did I get up there? Well, I was stranded on the roof of the shadow because I'm not grounded. My standpoint on Earth is way too high, and I don't know why it's the shadow's house. But why did the anima disappear? The anima disappeared because consciousness exerts too much intention in in going towards the depths. Not can't do that. Anima is the bridge to the descent, but she will disappear if ego doesn't rely on her. And so ego didn't rely on her, so she just took over, you know. Well, anyway, that's not as satisfying as I thought it was going to be, but why don't we all, do you have any comments on the picture, Tim? You're up on the roof, looking over at the precipice. There's John with his ladder, and there's the car going down the road. So,
the ladder seems like a reasonable and doable descent.
mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking of whether or not it's the shadow. There's some helper that I haven't been able to access that will allow me to descend in a not so scary way.
Yeah, it's a helper too. We don't have to call it the shadow, because there doesn't seem to be any hint that, other than the fact that haven't seen him recently, that he's causing any problems. Other than, did he strand us on the roof? What are we doing at John's house? And what are we doing on the roof? How'd we get there? You know, it's pretty interesting. Well, why don't we, we haven't answered that question. Roy, what do you think? Oh, you're muted. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'm still working with this theory. Like Tim is the other person opposite of Charles, who's been able to deal with the life experiences because he's more competitive and he can process these experiences better. So he was able to establish himself in a career, I think he said, for 20 years. And of course, there's a sacrifice for that. And I think it's coming out in this dream. There's the water again, but it's frozen water, and it's obscuring his view. And I'm looking at John as a psychopath. He's the one that can lead Tim out of this situation. And I think the sacrifice he made, the things that he lost in his career, elevated him in this situation. And he has this psychopath, and he has this transcendent function like a ladder where he can transcend and reconnect with what he's lost. So that's very hopeful. So I kind of like this dream.
What do you think, Charles? You always have a interesting viewpoint.
To me, this dream really just simply makes me think that the trust has to be totally let over to a middle figure, and the middle figure is gonna, she's gonna drive the car, he's gonna get you down from the roof. You just have to trust them. Mm-hmm. And really just trust them, and then they're gonna put you in the right I didn't want to say put you in the right place, because that sounds a little negative, but like they're going to bring you closer to the middle plane, which to me is the middle chakra, which is the heart. So they're going to bring you closer to the heart and to the center. You just have to give your trust to them.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because in two cases, the only way that we can make the descent is without ego. I mean, we need helpers, some type of a helper, which is really how every fairy tale is solved. The ego, the king's conscious sons can't help, so we need animal helpers or instinctive helpers to help cure the fault. And what the fault seems to be is we're too high. We need to come closer to the earth. You know, what do you think, Gary?
Well, I mean, the problem is the descent. And, so first we start off with the ideal, because to really find the anima, requires a descent. And so it begins with that. But that is too much for the ego. It's like the ego wants to be in control. The ego wants to drive. It immediately finds out that it's not capable. And I think I disagree about the feminine then taking over. I think it's like, okay, the ego is kind of releasing, and so it gets down some, but it's not with the anima that it wanted to join with. So now we have the other part of the descent problem, and once again, ego is powerless to do anything. But one of the things that I've done a lot of work on ladders, and ladders are very much a feeling type of tool. You're not so much looking as you're feeling, and I'm like, this feels like, again, it's a really, it's like saying, look, to descend, this is your feeling function. The intellect isn't going to do it.
Yeah, it requires hand over hand. In other words, a ladder is something that we descend, one step at a time. It's where we were going down the hill really fast, and when the vehicle itself turns over, it's more of a controlled descent. And when we go down a ladder, it's one step at a time too. I had a dream that the path before me looked unbearably long, and I had this vision of a ladder, and I was just to take it one rung at a time. And then when I got up to the top, there was a tree limb, which with a rope on it that would let me down to paradise. So there is an idea there of the of a step, one step at a time descent from where we are too high up. We can't jump; that's too dangerous. And so this like Roy said, it seems to be a helping spirit. John brings the ladder, and allows us to descend, but only one step at a time. What do you think, Kevin?
Yes, Tim. First of all, I want to apologize because I feel like I cannot do just like justice to this dream. I feel like this is such a big part of your life that it would need so many questions to fully unravel this dream. I do feel there is a sense of bad timing. There is already a road in which you can climb and which you can go, but it's not the right timing. It's too much snow, but you still try to do it. Like you still try to sort of drive this vehicle. And for me, that would be a question mark. Why am I driving in this road when it's full of snow, when there is no clear road? Yes, and during that turmoil, falling down, obviously the feminine is lost. So the car sort of rolling around, I feel like is a symbol of a turmoil, like an ego, which, yeah, it's a stressful aspect of one's self, I guess. But what happens is that when people fall down, like Icarus, he flied up because he wanted to reach the sun, and he fell down. But he fell down into the ocean, into the rock bottom. But your or the dream's sense of falling down is to another height. So I don't know, like, that's the thing, like I cannot do justice. I need to ask so many questions, like, did you feel that, hit rock bottom and so on and so, but the dream is saying you hit another height, and so I wouldn't say that's sort of a rock bottom, but and you hit on a roof. Roof protects you from outside danger. You know, you go inside under a roof to protect you from an outside danger. But here you're standing on top of a roof. So it's quite somewhat, it's a safety net because you don't fell totally down, but at the same time it's also a vulnerable place. Perhaps I would ask myself, in your dream, did you know where you were going? Like, did you know where you're driving towards?
Let's see.
No is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's interesting too, Tim. Where do you think you are in your balance between? I mean, no, you don't have to go into great detail, but the balance between your personal life, your artistic life, your business life, your relationship to the earth, and your relationship to the feminine.
Well, that's an interesting question. My professional life has been kind of like the sequestration we've all been a part of, where I've chosen to isolate rather than go back out into the rough and tumble of the business world, and that's my preference. But I think my psyche is saying that I need that helper in order to negotiate that descent into the winter of my my social world.
Yeah, the social world too. Yeah, it's it's asking for two descents, and in both cases, in one case the feminine assists us through 1 foot deep of crystallized unconsciousness, and from a place that's too high up. In the second place, someone brings us a ladder because we can't descend without great danger, and we can descend it one step at a time. You know, I'd like Carl to read his dream, but next time let's try to finish Charles, Kevin, and Tim's dream. See if we can conclude and wrap our heads around it. Because Tim, I don't think we've done it yet. I know we haven't done it with Charles and Kevin, but let's give it a little more incubating time and see if we can do it. Carl, could you at least read the dream that you'd like us to discuss?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
You pick your highest rated one, but next time we also read your whole narrative, and just for a little bit of background. But why don't you just tell us which dream is? I always would rate my dreams 1 to 5, and I would always try to do all the 5s. Which do you have, a 5 or a 4?
Well, I have one that I thought was just a lot of archetypal, just symbols. They seem a little more obvious to me, which it was just really puzzling and kind of new. Like, I'll start with the one that's kind of funny. So I remember the dream picking up, there were several parts to it, but I am coming from an apple orchard, and I am running from one town to another. This is a place I grew up in, Northport, Maine, and I'm running to Belfast, Maine, where I was born, and down Route 1. And I run by the owner of the apple orchard's house. I don't see anyone there. It looks kind of a little derelict. And I run by my grandparents' old place on Route 1. And next to that, there are a bunch of wicker, like bassinets with little like veils, something like a veil-like material around them. And standing not far from there is a very tall lady in a diaphanous peach gown. When I say tall, I mean like 10 feet tall. But she has the feet, like the feature, all her, the features besides her legs, which I can't see beneath the gown, are all that of a normal sized human being. So she just has this long flowing gown. And she's brunette. She appears to be like mid to late 30s, maybe, or 40 something. I don't know, somewhere 30s, 40s. And I like kind of jump up like through the air into only a foot and a half or two from her face, and she's startled. And so yeah, I think I say something like, she's like kind of signals like, give me a little space.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I will. I'm not going to kiss you or anything here.
Yeah. Well,
And I can't remember what she says, but I mean, it all seems really obvious to me, but it was pretty, she was very vivid. Like, I just remember her having like a strong presence, just like really arrested my attention, seeing this. I think it's something almost like from when I was a baby. I just had that sort of feeling of like a grandmother or grandmother like being over me, like would have appeared very tall like that, perhaps. I am my ex-girlfriend, who is going to be moving here to stay with me for 2 months. We're talking about starting a family, so I think that probably has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to have to talk about, in my case, I was always accused of putting the feminine up on a pedestal, but in this case, the feminine is very. We'll have to discuss what its largeness means, or its height, or its tallness.
I think I asked if it was on stilts, if she was on stilts, and she said yes, but it didn't look.
She looked natural. Well, I thought you said you saw her feet.
No, I couldn't see her feet.
Okay.
I just she just long flowing gown, but she appeared to be a woman of about 5'5" or 5'6", but just with it somehow floating above the earth. But the gown reached all the way to the ground. You could not see her legs or feet.
Okay, well that kind of changes. So she's not really 10 feet tall. She's standing up 5 foot off the ground. Awesome.
Yeah, like she is like a supernatural sort of shape. Isn't that her waist and everything up seems to be of a normal scale, arms, face, all of that. But her legs obviously would have had to have been like at least 6 feet long each to be as tall as she was, or more.
Okay, well, we're going to go at this because every one of those images are very important. We'll start it next time. And also, Dawn, I meant to this time, but I'd like to make a statement about your two visions. Then we'll try to wrap up Charles, Kevin, and Tim's dream. And then we'll start on Carl's dream until we get done with it. But then Gary and Roy, you will be up after we do Carl's dream. So, if maybe you can beg by the way, I just want to say, these are all great dreams. I don't know what they mean. I've been kind of watching the annals of Tim Holmes' studio life over the last few years. And it's a mystery, and, Charles and Kevin's too. So these are very fascinating dreams. And let's see if we can just try to make them a little less broken up next time. So anyway, and Dawn, I do want to just reiterate yours because it was so beautiful. So anyway, we'll meet on Monday and thank you for everybody. And that was a beautiful drawing too, Tim. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll see you guys all next time.
Thanks,
see you, everyone.
everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl. Dawn.
I think-
Bye.